Welcome again to News Express, exclusively brought to you by Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. I am Chukunonso Modi. We have eye-catching stories hitting the front page this week. Let's take a look. Now, the big story, Easter meets Ramadan, high prices, 15.90% inflation, Nigerians spend 56% on food. Sub-headlines, analysts see more inflation squeezes ahead. Another big headline, global renewable power capacity rises 9.1% to 3,064 gigawatt in 2021. Now, you should also check out commodities and agriculture with an interesting story, blockchain creeps into agriculture. Definitely look out for company and business with Indorama's $3 billion game changer. Finance and investment too with equity analyst C Light in underweight. Executive knowledge series, biodiversity, why should business care? And project syndicate as well with Africa's long post-COVID climb. Now let's bring in Philip Isakwa, the publisher Business AM, to help us make sense of the headlines. Good morning, Philip.
Yeah, good morning, Nonso. It's good to be back to look at what's happening locally and globally with regards to business.
All right. It's good to have you back too. Let's go straight to the first headline, which says Easter meets Ramadan, high prices, 15.90% inflation, Nigeria spend 56% on food. Now, it's no secret that, global surge in food prices is taking a toll on emerging and developing economies. And then we have current figures from the National Bureau of Statistics showing that Nigerians now deploy over 56% of their total spending on food, as food inflation in the country heads to 18% after printing 17.20% year-on-year in March 2022. Now, it doesn't also help that the purchasing power of Nigerians have remained eroded by the continued onslaught on the naira. I mean, right now it's already trading 600 naira to $1 at the parallel market, Mr. Philip.
This is an interesting thing. I mean, we've been following this kind of development since, especially each time you have these inflation numbers come out every month. It's just the way things are. There are challenges within the economy, and the prices of foodstuff and perhaps every other item in the country has been skyrocketing for some time. So inflation numbers came out. Remember in December in January we talked about December inflation, slowing down we talked about. In general, we talk about December inflation being what's called affected by what you call seasonal the seasonal spending that we had in December. Festivity spending. Helping inflation, because we saw for some time, about 8 months or so, inflation was even though it was still high, was coming down, and until that December when it changed course and began to climb. And then we had the January inflation numbers that came out in February, and then there was another kind of a break, even though inflation's still high, and this has been on, especially because food component of the inflation numbers has been quite a concerning item, because the basket of goods that are used to measure these inflation numbers, we found that food had been constituting quite a lot, and that's because for quite some time, food production across the country, especially in the food basket areas of the north, had been challenged by the farmers' headers crisis, that made it difficult for people to go to the farms, or farmers to go to the farms to produce food. And then we had, there was a particular year, I think last year, we had the rainfall, that the freak rainfalls that happened that affected a lot of farmlands up north, that led to production being challenged, and Then you then look at the global situation. COVID-19 came. We're an import-dependent country. We import a lot of items, including some foodstuff. And the supply chain situation that was challenged in 2021, seeped into inflation numbers and caused the basket to be affected by high food prices. Now, what we're seeing, the inflation numbers released for March, it says the inflation is climbing again. It's 15.92%. And the concerning thing really is that we are finding out that 56% of Nigerians spending, what we spend on ourselves, There's so many things we spend on. You could look at a house, accommodation. You could look at the clothing, But we're saying that households are spending 56% of their total spending. 56% of their total spending is going on food alone. Which shows that there is something particularly serious happening there, because you need food to live. You need food to have productive people in an economy, and it is something that policymakers we should be concerned about. Of course, we have those three basic things: clothing, housing, shelter, and food, of course, sustenance. These are key things that should worry policymakers and government. And if 56% of spending, of total spending, household total spending, is going on food, then it is challenging. It's not just that. There's so many things happening around right now. Because a lot of food items, or take for instance bread, which is largely made out of wheat, flour made out of wheat for production of bread and confectionaries. That also it's a major item in the food basket when inflation is calculated. And then the global situation is such a difficult one now, because we have this war going on in Europe and in Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine crisis, which has clearly, disrupted the global commodities markets, especially with regards to some key food items, and particularly wheat, for instance. We're talking about an area where a lot of wheat is produced, and the percentage of the control that region has, or that axis has over some food supplies, is such that it's affecting prices globally, commodities prices globally, and it's not just the food, there are so many things that help to even make food production even more challenging, so you have the global oil markets being affected. You need fuel, to move, to first of all, to be involved in production, so you need where the international crude oil market is already affected, because Russia's supplies are not really challenged, and you have crude oil prices have risen over $100 a barrel, for quite some time. So Nigeria is a major importer of what's called fuel, PMS, petrol, from the international market. And if crude oil prices have gone up, it means that this has an impact on what we import, and that is having an effect in terms of the cost of already. We know how the price of petrol has gone up in many parts of the country, and if you have to transport farm produce from one part of the country to the other, that's also seeped into transportation costs, and those things are built immediately into what's called the the goods the produce that are sold in the market, and then the manufacturers too who produce the food items also are suffering from the fact that the diesel prices have gone up. We are hearing that banks are rejigging their operational hours because they are burning too much diesel, and all of this, represent challenges, that seep into food, the cost of food, and these inflation numbers are very high, and then particularly because we're talking about a period, so we say Easter meets Ramadan, of course, you have Easter, just gone, and then you have the Muslim, I think that's coming up, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So you have two seasons, two festive period when people actually do spend on food, and a lot on food and spend. So we thought it was important to highlight this, Again, it came at a time when inflation numbers also came out, telling us that March inflation is 15.92%, and that's not a friendly number for inflation. The major thing, Nonso, is that people actually, of course, you have economists or you have analysts speak to these numbers, but you don't have the what you call the active. What you think would be an active government approach, to looking at these numbers and considering them really serious numbers to tackle. If this were happening in somewhere in Europe or in the US, when inflation is going up in the US already, and you can hear a lot of noise being made about it. Even the World Bank, IMF, they are all involved talking about inflation numbers in the US because. When inflation numbers begin to go up, like they're doing now, the Federal Reserve, will come in, and begin to tinker with interest rates, and so many things will begin to happen. Already, one of the things that is happening is that, which the IMF highlighted in its report, in its global stability report just released yesterday or so, is that a lot of investors are moving out of emerging markets, maybe sub-emerging markets like Nigeria, because of what the US, how the US is reacting to inflation, and you have that across different different markets, developed markets, looking where you have investors looking at developing countries like Nigeria or emerging markets like Nigeria, and saying, we have to move. So there are so many things you look at, when, and that's why we say these things are serious things to consider. You don't just have an inflation going 15.92%. So all you have are analysts playing with the numbers, talking about the numbers, and then government not really particularly looking at those numbers and seeing how they can be addressed seriously. So we have these numbers, we have inflation going up, we have more households spending more money on food, and you then wonder, the one major thing to look at when you look, when these numbers are up, is that it's how the quality of life is affected. So if 56% of spending is going on food alone, we probably will just be eating and eating and eating, to survive, and not talk about how much will go to education, how much will go to healthcare, and how much will go to the other things, in accommodation and stuff like that, So one way or the other, if 56% is going 56% is of spending is going to food alone, then there must be some serious danger happening in some other aspects of life. So people might be ill, might fall ill, and not have money to take care of their illnesses, or they might not have money to spend on education. They might not have money to spend on shelter, on clothing. Perhaps this is how you look at these numbers when they come out, and they have an extended impact. So that's why when you say 56% is being spent on food, then it should be concerning to the authorities than to government officials and policy makers in particular.
Yes, I agree that there's definitely an uptrend in inflation figures, and it is a pre-election year, and analysts have expectedly said that pressures from this election, election spending will definitely fuel inflationary pressures and have the pockets of average Nigerians squeezed as the inflation numbers may gradually rise or decrease. Now, is there anything that can be done by the fiscal and monetary authorities to stop this looming effect on the average Nigerians? Because this can as well push millions into the arms of serious poverty if we are not careful, Mr. Philip.
Well, so election spending, that hasn't even started. We're talking about the parties just trying to even get themselves together to see if they can have their nominees. So there's still this jostling. People consulting, as it were. And then moving around from state to state. Trying to present themselves as the right viable candidate for the parties. That isn't over yet. So the election spending we're talking about will perhaps, I think the INEC, the umpire, the election umpire, has fixed. I think is it May, June. I don't know. They put a date, for primaries to be for the parties to present their candidates. So when that is all done, then the election spending that the people, analysts have been talking about will now kick in. So the what's it called, the IMF, the World Bank, they've looked at the global inflation generally, and they've said policymakers will need to get serious, in terms of how they handle monetary policy or fiscal policies, to deal with inflation. Now, I mean, how do you control the spending? Election spending is, as far as Nigeria is concerned, is difficult to control because, of course, there are there are laws, that limits, puts a cap or puts caps on spending, but nobody actually monitors, and nobody actually, sanctions are not imposed, so people just spend, and I don't think that will fizzle out anytime soon, so not this year anyway, not next year, so you have that creeping in, so monetary policy authorities can try to control the amount of money in circulation or the amount of money that goes out into the economy, but there's very little that can be done at this stage. It's something that we hope that the economy will. What's happening globally will have not too much of an effect, and then domestically that there's an attempt to really focus on those other the key things. For instance, prices of you have prices, the price of petroleum products or prices of petroleum products. You have handling the naira exchange rate situation, and making sure that there's enough whether to say tightening also, but it's about making sure that there is a serious control of the people actually look into what is going on in the country. Those who are responsible for fiscal and monetary policy, policies are actually on top of the game. Because it's when if they take their eyes off the ball, then anything could happen. You could have things really going out of hand. But those things that are within their control, using monetary policy instruments, like the IMF and the World Bank have advised, because they're looking at inflation now. It's not a case of just Nigeria or just Africa, but because these signals are coming also from the U.S. Inflation numbers are going up in the U.S. and inflation even in the UK as well. In Europe generally. So they are paying attention to it. Because of the impact it could have generally. So the local, Nigerian monetary policy and fiscal policy people can take a cue, because when the IMF and the World Bank are making advising, with regards to what's going on in Europe or what's going on in the United States, then you can expect some measure of sincerity, because they know that that is it's a global has global impact,
Yes.
So you will expect that they could take the monetary fiscal authorities could listen, to what they're saying in terms of using monetary and fiscal tools, to ensure that the inflation doesn't become something that will worry citizens and a lot of people. Yes.
All right. This inflation is really causing issues. It's sad that it's affecting the average Nigerian, but at this point, I don't know what we're going to do or how it's going to end. All right, let's go to the second headline, which says global renewable power capacity rises 9.1% to 3,064 gigawatts in 2021. Now, according to data tracked globally by Internationally Renewable Energy Agency, the world's total renewable power capacity increased by 9.1% at the end of 2021 to reach 3,064 gigawatts. This is good, Mr. Philip. it shows that renewable energy has continued to expand steadily, well above the long-term trend.
Yes, you see, the reason why this is an interesting story, it's again, you need to tie this to the fact that every effort has been made, to move out of fossil fuel, and a lot has been said about renewable power, renewable energy, with regards to supplying electricity, And then a lot of people have looked at, particularly if you look at Africa, if you take these numbers, globally they said this is what has happened, because more attention has been paid to renewable energy, to the point that the capacity rose 9.1%, to this 3,064 gigawatts, in 2021, but you still need to drill it back home, what's the level with regards to Africa, and what's the level with regards to Nigeria, especially because if you, there's so many technologies with regards to renewable energy capacity. You talk about the different ways that this has been, for instance, solar energy, wind energy, bio energy, and geothermal energy, off-grid electricity. All of that, constitutes the different ways through which this renewable energy is being generated. Now, this capacity has been increased. So the key thing is that how much are we, Nigeria, tapping into this, how much attention is being paid, to this with regards to keying into it. Of course, you have different I mean, you can go to some places where you have solar panels, on the rooftops of many houses, but effectively as a policy, as a what's it called, was a national attempt, to see that renewable energy is pursued, vigorously. It's not quite there yet, especially in Nigeria, in Africa generally. If you look at if you look at the numbers, you find that the growth was more in Asia, for instance. Growth was more in Asia. You have the US, you then have Europe. But what is the contribution with regards to Africa? Generally, wasn't really much. The percentage increase, it wasn't really much. But because it is the way the world is moving, with regards to wanting to reduce fossil fuel impact, on the world, it is something that we think that Nigerian government needs to pursue, vigorously, in terms of as a policy, because they talk about a lot of sunshine in Africa, talk of a lot of sunshine in Nigeria. It provides, especially if you up north, the sunshine is quite a lot. It's important to see how this can be harnessed. So that hasn't been pursued. But good thing that the capacity is. Attention continues to be paid to renewable energy, and capacity is increasing globally. But the numbers aren't looking particularly good for Nigeria, especially with regards to this is positive. It's positive for what they say World Energy Transition's outlook. How the world is transiting from fossil fuel, to renewables and other friendlier energy sources, But how are we in Nigeria approaching this, and how are we tapping into the opportunities that renewable offers? That remains the question.
Yes, it does remain a question, because I agree that while Africa's renewable energy capacity growing by 3.9% is a good one, but then Nigeria, we haven't really touched that point. We haven't really tapped into this renewable energy. But then I remember that there was a time when they spoke about, distributing solar to 25,000 Nigerians or so, and you'll have to pay a deposit so that you can buy up the solar systems. I don't know how that has gone, if it worked out or, it's just hanging.
There are pockets of attempts, being made here and there. Shell. We know Shell is promoting all on. There's a group called an organization called All On.
Energy,
that Shell is promoting. To see that renewable energy or solar system, and then there are others as well who are doing one thing or the other, to push this. I think one there's also one or two other IOCs, international oil companies that are involved in this, but and then government has. Because you have a lot of challenge with regards to energy in the rural areas, electricity supply in rural areas, there have been a lot of attempts to say, that is the approach to go, the way to go is this renewable, especially off-grid electricity, looking at solar system as a way, to get electricity to the rural areas,
Yes.
And then they've come up with all sorts, just like you've mentioned, distribute 25 reach out to 25,000 people. I mean, you're talking about a country of 100 million people. If you want to reduce that to say the people in rural areas are say half of that, it's still 25. What is 25,000 to 50 million?
Yes.
So the key thing now is whether there is a holistic approach to this. There has to be a systematic and a systematic, conscious and systematic approach to it. A determination to want to see that they succeed with this. But that has not been the case, It's just sometimes a lot of things have. It's always full of, lip service approach to these things and this serious issues. That nothing eventually comes out of it.
Yes.
So the energy mix for Nigeria, energy mix, especially with regards to electricity, concentration. Of course, we have people will tell you that you have gas. You have gas all over the place. You are more a gas country than even an oil producing country.
Yeah.
But that hasn't resulted in some great benefits in terms of being channeled to the right uses. This war in Ukraine has brought to fore. We talked about this a few weeks ago or so, with regards to how gas from Russia sustains a lot of European countries, if not most European countries, with regards to their energy needs, So, but we have gas. The other time we're talking about how to get this channel to Europe, But the key thing is, major thing will be for gas to be useful to us, to the country, and its citizens first of all, in such a scale that that most of the problems with regards to electricity supply, it's resolved because you have a lot of gas, But beyond that too, even if they say gas is better than burning diesel or whatever, far better than burning diesel, you also have to look at renewable, from a broader perspective with regards to solar, for instance, and then the other technologies that are associated with it, there's hydropower. Hydropower hasn't even been scratched, because there have been a lot of people, experts, who have suggested that you can do mini hydro, and be able to generate electricity, for a lot of places, especially those rural areas, So there are rivers across the country, that can be damped, in such a way that they provide a mini hydropower generation, that can serve localities, and not this all-in-one approach to dealing with these matters. So with regards to a firm approach, holistic, systematic approach to renewable as an option, that is where there is a challenge, or the policy is lacking, or even if there might be policy, there might be policies, but the drive, to ensure that those policies are actualized, it's not there, So that might also be an issue. There are so many things that are on ground that good policies are on ground, but are not well driven to achieve the results that they are supposed to achieve.
Yes, like you said, there's so much benefit to renewable energy, but then we are not we're not hitting the right spots, and hopefully we retrace our steps and do the needful. Okay, there is one more story that caught my eye. That is blockchain creeps into agriculture. Now, it was interesting to read that in recent times, indigenous agri-tech startups have, triggered technology adoption and also enhanced farming methods across the country to the utilization of community linkage applications and other innovations. Now, how could this transform the agri sector?
Well, we're working on that story, with the journalist who produced it.
Yes.
It's a good thing that, but credence should be given to what's it called, the commodities exchanges.
Yes.
So the commodities exchange, particularly the FX commodity exchange, is bringing this in because it's about managing the flows and the processes. Connecting people. It's not that the blockchain will it's like a fertilizer. That you will put on the but it is for instance access to bringing everybody together, creating trust, in the system, but it's also about elevating, agriculture has been done in a subsistence manner for too long a time. The commercialization of agriculture hasn't reached that high level, perhaps also that's why food we have food shortages, because the way in which agriculture has been practiced or operated in the country is not the full scale, full blown commercial and mechanized system. Otherwise you wouldn't have too many. You wouldn't be hearing that agriculture employs the highest number of people.
Yes,
you just have a few people. You have a few people who are producing the foods that we eat. Because they are doing wholesale commercial farming or commercial agriculture. Now the blockchain has come in because over the years, there has been efforts have been made, to try to create a system, where the farms, and commodities trading, meet somewhere, so that there's a system in place that allows people to produce, while warehousing is done, for those produce to be in the warehouse, and then there's what you call the receipts, that confirms that those things exist in warehouses, because that is how these commodities are traded in the global markets. That the goods are produced, they are in warehouses, and people can buy. So the blockchain is coming in. They are introducing this now to come in, to bring some order into it, so that if people who are in the blockchain system can be assured of trust, because it's information that is there.
Yes.
It's based on what is actually on ground. And then it can also link them to, farmers farmers or farms, to their counterparts in different parts of the world, for what is needed and what is available and what they can tap into globally. So it's about the systematic approach to this thing that is coming into place now with the introduction, as like we said, blockchain creeping into agriculture. So that's what is actually happening here, and it's a good thing that people like FX, the commodities platform, it's getting involved, and they have brought in experts, some experts who are versatile in the blockchain technology, to come in, and then provide assurances. I guess what will happen is that because a lot of you have a lot of farm activities taking place in smallholder situations, right? So you will have the commodities traders, who interface with these smallholder farmers, and they are the ones that will actually be in the space, between it's not the farmers that are coming to the blockchain. Coming to use blockchain, but the commodities traders, who interface with the farmers and the farms, getting the assurances, with the information from the farms into the blockchain system, through the commodities trading platform, through the warehousing that is in place, and providing those assurances and providing those guarantees, for the traders. The traders locally and the international markets to engage, but first across Nigeria, second across Africa as a whole, and then globally, so that's how people are expecting that this blockchain introduction will provide some order, some orderliness, in the way commodities agricultural sector is operating at the moment.
All right. Like you said, this is a really good initiative, even though I still feel like we have a long way to go, in attaining financial performance, comparing to developed clients. But then, if we tap into this and ensure it comes to stay, it will benefit us in the long run, yes?
Yeah, it will. There's quite a lot, that blockchain technology is used for. There's blockchain all over the place. Even this there's blockchain before cryptocurrency, for instance. So the thing was blockchain before crypto. It's actually the engine room is the blockchain. So we expect that this will have some help to make some significant inroad, in the way it is organized and the way it's meant to operate, and then how it transforms the agri sector, for instance, connecting farmers, connecting vendors, connecting food processors. The thing is that once the blockchain, with the blockchain in place, you're no longer talking about a local market. You are talking about a global market. So you are bringing people together. You are bringing people from surplus areas to areas of need. And trading will be smoother. The point is to have, a proper. So there's where it is traded, So where the commodities exchange is where trade is taking place, And then you talk about the supply chain issues, Now you will have smoothness going on, some smooth trading going on with regards to goods in warehouse or goods in farms going to be in warehouse or warehouses, and then there's guarantee that the goods are there, the traders are trading, and then that aspect is taken care of, and then the supply chain, which is the movement of the goods from the warehouses to where they are needed, that becomes another complete thing for other people to handle, so you don't have one person, we'll get to the farm, organize your transportation, organize your where you are delivering it to, for this, what this will do is make that connection possible, and then make it easier for other things to take care of themselves while trading is done. So it's about like they say, infusing the agri sector into the commodities trading platform in such a way that that things move in the proper order.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. We'll definitely see how the stories develop this week.
Thank you very much, Nonso. Have a great week.
You too. All right, that was Philip Isakwa, the publisher of Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. That's all for now. Stay tuned for more.